end, I decided that if someone didn't look good, I was just gonna tell them. Because he didn't look good before. He was puffy. He was yellow. He looked not his normal self. And I see him every day, and I knew something was up. So,
well, that's John from, from Top Deer Ranger Station.
I don't have uniforms memorized, I guess.
You don't know about Smokey Bear?
Yeah, I know about National Park Service.
I always
I know
wearing that uniform.
Yeah.
my younger brother doesn't like it when I tell him that. I sent him a text. I didn't do it on Facebook, but he put a picture up and he was in McDonald's drive-thru, and he's like the heaviest I've ever seen him. And I was like, dude, you need to go to the doctor and get some tests done. You're like 40 years old. You better check yourself out. And he's like, yeah. He tried to tell me.
No, I mean, the 740, what's their connection?
Are they speaking also?
I had arranged for them to be on the board to give us an update on the Kimball.
But they don't ever have
Okay.
to have lived there, or?
So we'll do,
We'll just fit them in when we can, we'll add it to the agenda.
okay,
Very brief update on the Kimball clearing project up at Gunflint.
okay,
No, the election rules.
Gunflint Ranger Station update.
okay.
Haven't seen you kids in a while.
Let's go.
Good morning. I will call to order the Cook County Commissioners on this date, June 12th. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And making adjustments to the agenda?
Chair,
Yes.
request to add one item, to approve the 2019 budget calendar and the letter to department heads. If you do that, I'd say, since it's, it's not on the agenda, but there is a budget item on the agenda under Jeff, so put it after that, so if anybody's here for that, then they could stay for this part.
And Madam Chair, we have U.S. Forest Service Gunflint Ranger District here to give us an update on one of their proposed projects for the summer as well.
Okay, we'll work that in too. Anything else? Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Motion passed, okay. At this time, the public are welcome to address the county board in any matter of concern for the county. We allow up to 30 minutes, and since we have a few people here, let's say it this way. You will each have a chance to speak before us up to about 4 minutes. You will come to the table, sign in, give us your name, and then that's when the time will start. So we have the timekeeper here, and whoever wants to be first can step up.
I'd like to go first, Rebecca.
Oh, do we put contact info?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, Administrator, my name is Susan Parent-Schubert, and I've known a few of your names for a good part of my life. My family has had a cabin and property on Binnagami and on Pine Mountain Road for over 50 years. So what brings us here today is a good idea that has become divisive and doesn't have to be. And why has it become divisive? Because the border-to-border route proposal has overstepped and overextended the intent of the legislation. There is no mandate for a border-to-border route. The Clearwater resolution to oppose the B2B, which still stands and was sent to their representatives and their senator, alerted us to examine the legislation, which says to address off-road vehicle touring routes and other issues related to off-road touring activities. The off-road vehicle community already has a very successful model in Gilbert, and the goal would be to recreate that and to help the off-highway vehicle community find such other sites. The linear transverse route of the proposed B2B only satisfies one component. The second phase of loops and spurs to challenge the serious road aficionados by climbing over roots, rocks, and trees is to follow. But if we create closed loops like the routes that are so successful in Gilbert that are sustainable, we can combine and satisfy both objectives of touring and route challenges that do not have the conflicts Clearwater has pointed out, such as the increased cost to taxpayers of road repair, public safety costs, and increased enforcement, and property devaluation along the route. This model preserves the use of our roadways for local individuals, cars, and truck traffic, and local off-road clubs. That is a sustainable load for our roads and the environment and does not create the conflict that the B2B does. The locals and the local off-road vehicle community overall come from a place of respect and heightened awareness because they live here and they are very careful taking care of our natural resources. Outsiders simply don't have that mindset. They are good people, they just don't have that level of ownership that in the main our local population and off-road clubs do, and they're not aware of the footprint they leave behind. What we have here is a zoning issue and incompatible uses. It's like heavy industry being in a residential neighborhood. They're both legitimate uses, they just don't belong together. What Clearwater County has recognized is that these vehicles altered for highway use are quite different from ordinary trucks and cars. They have more horsepower, more traction, and aggressive tire tread that disturbs the surface soil much more than regular traffic at even normal speeds. This leads to increased maintenance costs which Clearwater cannot afford. The cost and the delays of the repairs and the extra workload and the bureaucratic burden of going through the submission process to access any funds all mean an interference with legitimate alternate uses of the road. The colleagues and friends I have made researching this issue stand ready to help solve these issues of conflict that I know Cook County and its commissioners can champion. Let's not let this border-to-border model be an enemy of a very successful closed-loop route that can address the two objectives of touring and challenging the OHV drivers. The Gilbert model has proven itself to be highly successful with significantly less conflict. I am hoping for a very transparent process in this ongoing dialogue where all points of view are considered with full disclosure and all sources of information and with full public engagement. And I offer my support and that of my colleagues to bring useful information to the board as it continues considering this important project. Thank you.
Next. Okay. And I will add that if anyone wants to leave their transcript, anyone wants to email us later, please do so.
Thank you. Hi, good morning. Denny Fitzpatrick, 210 Birch Drive. Thank you. I always start by commending each and every one of you for serving. I love my county government. I love my county services. And you all show up day in and day out. I just gratitude and appreciation. And thanks for starting this ongoing dialogue about the pros and cons of OHV B2B proposal of the DNR. I'd like to urge you to oppose the proposal in its current state. I see some real issues and concerns that need to be addressed, and hopefully we can do that. We've got quite a few concerned residents of the county, and they're making their voices heard, and I want you to keep an open ear and weigh the pros and cons and do what's best for Cook County, our beautiful, unforgettable natural experience. Okay, I've got 4 or 5 major concerns. Big one is the increase in OHV traffic that it would create by promoting, attracting, advertising, the increased use. You know, an OHV here and there is no big deal, and ATVs, everybody's got an ATV, but it's advertising, promoting, increasing the usage. And I read on the DNR site there could be up to 4,000 extra vehicles per year. And I just think our fragile rural road infrastructure can't handle it. I mean, the Forest Service is concerned. I would think the county would be concerned about who's going to do the maintenance and repair. It's kind of laughable that the DNR, the gas tax revenue and license, and a few volunteers is going to keep up with the maintenance and repairs to the damages that could be caused by groups of ATVers being attracted to, groups of OHVers being attracted to those roads. These are roads that we locals use to get to town and back and to get home and back, and I don't think they were designed for interstate touring by these big, it's the trucks. I have to draw the line at the so-called mutter trucks, or the big trucks. They have these big aggressive wheels and horsepower. They're for thrill-seeking and adventure, and you know, they belong in a dedicated park like the Gilbert model, where you can just rip things up and test your skills and test the motor. The Gilbert model is kind of a win-win for the OHV use, but not on our little back roads that we already have a pretty fragile infrastructure that's hard enough to keep up with by our county budget. And the Forest Service, I talked to the Forest Service, they're really concerned about they need to see a memorandum of understanding of who's going to really do the maintenance and repair and policing. So the second real concern is the phase 2 loops and spurs that are yet undisclosed. There's the main corridor, but then phase 2 is little loops and spurs that create kind of a centipede look to the route.
Excuse me, Danny, you have 30 seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. Let me mention the net economic loss. Proponents will say they're going to bring in tourist dollars. It's a failed economic model that doesn't look at the displacement of the berry pickers, the bird watchers, the kayakers and bikers, hikers that come to a quiet, undisturbed natural area that our county offers. It results in a net economic loss because those silent sport people bring in 15 times the amount. So anyway, look for a win-win situation in it all, and I stress civility and dialogue and transparency, and thanks for all the work you do.
I'm Sharon Frickman, 306 County Road 44, and I've lived in the county for 37 years. And it's been a long time since I've been before you guys, so I don't know if any of you were even serving at that point. And service it is, I do realize that. Because I wouldn't want to be in your shoes, quite frankly. It's kind of hard to follow Denny. I would have given him my 4 minutes. He was doing such a good job. Well, I attended the February meeting at the high school. That was regarding this DNR proposal for an OHV interstate border trail system. And the attendees at that meeting were told by the DNR representative, Mary Straka, that this was an informational meeting only. We were to look at the provided maps and determine the best route for these trails to traverse Cook County. It was made quite clear that this was not the time to address concerns unless they were directly related to what the route selection would be. Okay, instead, we were to write down any concerns for later consideration. Turns out that this was the one and only public meeting. And I have issues with that because I think we do need to have voices, and that's why I'm here. I noted at this time that the route chosen had over 40 access points to water. Our rivers, trout streams, and wetlands if a driver was thrill-seeking and went off-road. Although these are highway legal vehicles, mud bogging is what these trucks are built to do. They're built for off-road activity. And when they come here, they bring the mud on their trucks that's already on them, and I'm a landscaper, and they bring the invasive species into the county that we are currently fighting. On the mud, on their trucks. Just like the boats, bring it in their bilge water, or whatever. Phase 2 of this project wasn't even mentioned in this informational meeting, which includes these spurs and loops that would be built off the main road route. I cannot imagine how these waterways would not be impacted by these spurs. Susan covered the horsepower, the traction, the aggressive tires. Who is going to maintain the roads? Cook County is responsible even for the state aid roads to do the communications to make sure they're repaired. The Forest Service funds for maintenance have been cut considerably in the recent year or two. So will the burden fall on your constituents? We already have one road tax.
30 seconds, Sharon.
Okay. So this OHV intrastate trail system has been met with extreme opposition in other places in the state, and that's why it's moved north to us. Chapter 1 in the land use plan states, we live in Cook County because this unique place, this is in our land use plan. We live in Cook County because this unique place and community is where we choose to thrive amid an unparalleled natural
Sorry, your time is
environment
up.
for which we are dedicated stewards.
I'm
Please
sorry, your time
uphold
is up.
this stewardship.
Thank you.
All right, I'm Barb Backlund, and I'm here to express my concern about the border-to-border route, echoing what the other previous speakers talked about. And I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak. These are the following reasons why I am opposed to this route. While these roads are open to the targeted vehicles and there is currently incidental use by these vehicles, we should not be encouraging increased use. There is a concern about the negative impacts on wildlife, soils, vegetation, and water resources, which could not be mitigated. These roads do not offer the experience the OHV user is looking for, so why designate these routes? The actual experience these users are looking for would come later when the DNR came back to add additional spurs and loops, which would definitely have a serious negative impact on the environment. The noise these vehicles would make would be inconsistent with the general quiet, natural setting people who live or come here seek to experience. There has already been one county who realizes this is not a benefit and has denied them access. The impacts on the roads is unknown. It would increase use, which would require more road maintenance. I understand these are Forest Service roads. The Forest Service should not be burdened with the task of trying to obtain funding to maintain these roads when they are already underfunded. While there are respectful OHV users, there are those who are not. Enforcing current regulations regarding these users would not happen as there is not adequate personnel or funding. If this is allowed to go through, it will be nearly impossible to change. I support responding to the DNR that we do not want this route in Cook County. Thank you.
Morning, Madam Chair and board members. Scott Panalkin. I'm here to speak in favor of the border-to-border route. May 26th, I organized a ride that traveled on a lot of these roads. We had all makes of vehicles, mainly Jeeps, one turbo Porsche Cayenne SUV, $120,000 rig that he's not gonna go beating it up. We had anything from a stock Jeep Wrangler like mine to a brand new stock Jeep Grand Cherokee, to Jeeps that were running up to 35-inch tires. To address the concern about the aggressive tires are not there to tear things up. The aggressive tire is there to make it easier to pass something without spinning and tearing the soils up. This ride I organized, we all met at a local business here to fuel up our rigs. The local business loved us to be there. When the ride was done, we went back to the same local business and refueled our rigs. They loved to see us in there spending money. There was people from all over the state of Minnesota that came for this ride. There was 9 vehicles, including mine. Our ride was on a rainy day. I have pictures of our vehicles after the ride was done that you can have that show how terribly muddy we were. These roads are already there. 90% of these roads are minimum maintenance roads that nothing's done to them. 3 Jeeps on this ride took bags of garbage off the trails, and they paid out of their own pocket to go to North Shore Waste and get rid of this garbage that other people have left. These organizations, there are the bad seeds that go ripping off from the group. They're not invited back because they give a bad name to the whole organization and the whole enthusiast group. We don't want to wreck the environment. We're not there to wreck the environment. We keep these roads open. We keep the brush cleared for emergency services. And it's a big county. There's room. There's room for everything. There's the quiet places, and there's the places to go do this. We're not there to rip and tear things up. I hope the board will support this. And I emailed all the commissioners a copy of a petition I had. One commissioner acknowledged that they received my email. Thank you. I hope you will support this. It's another form of recreation that is a good thing for everyone. It's called a tour route. It's not called an off-road mud bog route. It's a tour route. Gets people to see parts of this county that you normally wouldn't see. I like organizing these. I take people, I tour them around the county. We stop, we eat, we take pictures of the scenery, and we continue on our way. And after this ride, I have numerous people that were on this ride and people who didn't make it wanting me to organize another one, which I am planning to do. But that's what I have. If you want the pictures. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning.
Morning.
Arbus Thompson, District 1. Take a deep breath because I'm going to change your focus. And I want to talk about jobs. I want to give you a couple stories that just came to me this last week. One of them is about a couple that is employed in this community, and they're living in a pop-up tent because they can't find any place to live. They're hoping that by fall they'll be able to get into something, either go for cabins or Birchwood, but they're at this moment optimistic. Let's hope they can find something. A pop-up tent is not exactly the best living arrangement for anyone for very long. The second one is about a family that was evicted because their rental was turned into a vacation rental. And so the family with children spent the winter in a garage. They now have some property and hopefully will be able to jump through the hoops and make something permanent for them. But to be evicted for a vacation rental and can't find anything besides a garage with children. We have, on the corner of the New Gunflint Trail, there was a Canadian brewery that wanted to come in and offer, I don't know, 10, 15 jobs, but they chose not to come because there isn't enough population here to employ, nor is there enough places for people to live. There is an assisted living that was going to come in and build what you thought you needed for assisted living and employ 25 people, and guess what? They're not here. And one of the reasons, I don't know all of them, but is because there is no population. There's no one to employ. If you could find people to employ, there's nowhere for them to live. Lutsen Mountains or Lutsen whatever is attempting to convince you that they need land in order to build ski hills so that they can survive, and they're going to employ people. I'd like to know who they're going to employ and where do they think they're going to live. It seems to me that employment in jobs, living someplace that is a warm, secure place for your family would be some of the priorities that we should be looking at. Not spending any more money, encouraging any more surveys, getting any more consultants. We've got enough plans out there. Is this not a priority for us before we go ahead and do anything else? Spend any more money building anything? If we can't keep the people here who are already here in something reasonable, if we're throwing them out of what they've got because we're going to vacation rental, what does that say about us? What does that say about how you care about the people who live here, who are your backbone, who care about what happens? Vacationers don't care. They come for a vacation. They walk away. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for your comments. For your future planning on June 19th at 5 o'clock, the information on the border to border will be presented by the DNR. That's a request. We're providing the room for that. So if you want to further any email, drop us a letter, whatever, do so. Thank you for your input.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
387-2928. Please feel free to call my phone number and I will gladly take you for a ride in my OHV on the route and talk about your concerns. It's a two-seater, just so you know. Can't all jump in there with me, but one at a time. Can you give me that number? 387-2928. It's all the information on the DNR site.
Okay, moving on then to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda items. Anyone want to pull anything? We all good with that?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. Judy Hill up next. Thank you, Myron. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Board. I have two items today. The first action item is to approve the posting to hire a new system administrator. Our current system administrator has sent us a letter stating he plans on retiring. He will be going down to half-time in July, and we would like to hire or post to hire a new system administrator. The outgoing administrator would train him in and plans to retire at the end of the year.
Okay. Questions, comments? Well,
Good
we-
plan. Thank you.
Especially being able to
Very
extend
good
it
approach,
out.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
appreciate that, for replacing him.
Motion to approve?
Are you a second?
Second it.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Great.
Motion passed.
Thank you. The second action item that I have is to approve renewal of the healthcare savings plan with the Minnesota State Retirement System. This is kind of an ongoing renewal. The healthcare savings plan covers exempt employees and the sheriff's employees, the law enforcement. The healthcare savings plan calls for a 1% county contribution for exempt employees, and also when the employee leaves, 25% of their paid leave would go into the healthcare savings plan. If they're retirement eligible, 100% would go in of the employee's paid leave. That's basically a renewal of the current plan. This is the way this plan has been in effect since before I've been here. And then the other part is the law enforcement. If they were to leave, 25% of their paid leave would go into the healthcare savings plan. And then again, this is a renewal. It's a plan that's been in effect since before I was here.
Questions, comments?
I move to accept.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Morning, Todd.
Good morning, Commissioners. Before you today, you see, I believe you see a list of 5 abatements. Back again with more abatements, some homestead issues that we're correcting. A couple other things. I'm not sure you have an item 6 on your list. This was added late, which we didn't get into the list, which I will ask for an abatement on that as well. That was for Gary Kettleson down in Tofty area. There was a clerical error made on his buildability of his land because of an easement issue that he brought to our attention. So we're abating the 18 for him. Specifics. Lisa Wallers, this was a homestead issue. And I think we touched on this the other day. The problem that we've had with a computer glitch for the Terrace Point, two parcels out there that the taxes weren't calculated based on having the buildings on. So we corrected that, talked to the owners about it, and we're abating it only in the other direction, so. And that was number 3 and number 2, number 3. Number 4 is the Buckman abatement. And the garage was on the wrong parcel. And because of those lines that we saw on our GIS map that are slightly off. So it had been on this parcel incorrectly for a couple years, so we're abating that back, changing it. So. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you for going back and reviewing things and checking things out on your own, and then when people call in, that's great service. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Clerk?
Can I get the property ID for Kittleson?
Kettleson property ID is 25-051-0400.
Thank you. Motion to approve, including 6. I'll second that.
Any other comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Done. Next item on the agenda is Tim Nelson, Land Services.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. The few items that I have before you today are actually dealing with ordinance adoption, the first of which is the septic loan ordinance, and this actually comes in two pieces. We have the septic loan ordinance, and then we have the accompanying policy and procedures that goes along with it. And this almost could have gone on the excuse me, on the consent agenda because the changes and modifications are so minimal on there. Basically, what we did is transferred the loan program, the administration of the loan program, from the Soil and Water District to the auditor's office. And so both the SSTS loan ordinance and the policy and procedures just reflect the changes in the designation of the office. The only other thing that was indicated in the changes is the fact that the loan can perpetuate with the property. Either the loan must be satisfied at the time of a property sale, or it can be assigned to stay with the property as the property transfers hands. And those are really the only changes that are on there. We did run through this through the public hearing this last month, and we had absolutely no comments, either written or orally at the Planning Commission meeting. Planning Commission went ahead and recommended unanimously to adopt.
Okay. Questions, comments? Commissioner Severson.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a question about, since the departments have changed from Soil and Water to Land Services, under the loan financing terms, I've just questioned the sentence that says the total amount of the loan shall not exceed for a single system except by petition of the landowner to Soil and Water Board. Oh, that probably stays the same.
Yes.
Okay. No worries. Thanks. Other questions for me? Okay.
Well, thank you, and to the people you work with. I believe in continuous progress, which means fine-tuning, monitoring, and adjust, and so that's good government. Thank you.
Thank you.
No questions.
No questions.
Motion to approve.
Support?
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. The next item, actually, we do have representation from the MIS here. Okay. This is regarding the tower ordinance. We had originally adopted the tower ordinance back in 2001. Primarily at that point was a real concern in terms of the cell tower proliferation all the way through the Highway 61 corridor. There had actually been a proposal that was floating around at that time to make a continuous line of towers from Duluth up to Thunder Bay. And so we had assembled a committee and put together an ordinance back then to address those concerns that were applicable at the time. And from the time that we adopted the ordinance, basically all of those projects and such kind of fell off. We've only had a few tower issues and concerns that have come up that have actually been on privately owned land that we've run through this particular ordinance. Now we find ourselves nearly 20 years later, and there's different concerns and different thoughts. And what I'll do is I can go ahead and turn it over to Rena and Rowan, so that they can describe, kind of the need to update this. And I will just say too, that when we did originally adopt this, subsequent to the original adoption, we also looked at there was a lot of interest in the wind to energy conversion systems, wind towers, and so we included those provisions in on that tower ordinance. What we wanted to do was just kind of basically separate those so that we would have a refined wireless telecommunications type tower, and we're going to take those provisions, should this new amendment be adopted, we're going to take the wind energy conversion and institute them into their own ordinance subsequent to this process. But I can go ahead and turn it over to Rena so she can describe some of the concerns.
Good morning, Commissioners, Madam Chair. As you know, we've been trying hard to get a handle on the tremendous, what could be a liability, trying to turn into an asset, our towers, in the way we use them, in the way that we make sure that the priorities, you know, are for public safety first, the intent that they were built for. And that there are a lot of things that are changing the environment. Tim sort of alluded to that. One of the main ones, of course, is FirstNet and the federal program to roll out public safety cell service, which is causing a lot of really aggressive activity about locating on towers or building new towers. So this ordinance was 20 years old. A lot of things have changed. Rules, FCC rules have changed. Just even our understanding of the technology, a lot of things have changed. We started kind of down this path, I think it was about a year ago, when we brought a policy to you about how to manage requests to be on our tower. And we talked about prioritizing different kinds of uses, and you know, kind of, you all kind of endorsed that. You did endorse it, I think at 500, that public safety was the highest, and other incidental uses, we just prioritize them down there. This brings that ordinance in line with the policy that we set. That's first and foremost. I think the other thing that we were really trying to do, it's all based from a vision of how do we use this resource to maximize services for county government, but also for citizens, but minimize the impact on the environment. Nobody really, as we know, whenever you talk about towers, we know what public comments look like. No one wants to see a tower in every direction. They don't. They don't want to see lights blinking at night. They just don't want to see that up here. And neither do we, neither do you. So how do we manage that? And that was the bottom line that we were trying to approach here. And it's challenging because really the county only probably can oversee like less than 10% of where that development can occur, because a lot of the land is Forest Service or DNR. So how do we do something that causes our vision to have a bigger reach than what we actually have a reach for? That was kind of the idea behind this. And even though the first tower ordinance, first version of it, talked about co-location, made it a priority to asking people to co-locate on existing towers, it didn't really make that easy for people to do. In fact, it made it just as hard to co-locate as it was to build another tower. That was problematic. You know, if you make it too hard to co-locate, somebody's going to go to the DNR or go to the Forest Service and try to build another tower. So if we're interested in tower proliferation, we have to have an ordinance that tries to encourage and does that in an active way, co-location. And that's what we did. We made it, if somebody wants to be on a county tower and they make that request, we use our priorities that we have. We look at the tower, how much is on it, you know, is this a public safety request? Is it, you know, just, you know, some random person wanting to put something on there? How much room is on there? We look at all of that stuff. That's on our side. And on Tim's side, it's a simple land use request, the administrative process to co-locate on a tower. Let's say that tower is full, and we've got a mandate like FirstNet does. The next thing we would try to do, and what we did in this policy, is we created something called that we call communication districts. We've gone through where our towers are located, and we've put a zoning layer on them, calling them a communication district. That's a place where there's already backhaul, there's already electricity, there's already access roads, and there's already a tower and other stuff that's there. And we say, well, if you need to build a tower, because it's not room on this one, why don't you build it here, where this infrastructure already exists? So that we have what we have at the top of the hill here. We have not towers spread all across the ridge, but we have them kind of bunched up together. That's the idea, so that if you're standing at Gunflint Lake, you may see a tower or two right next to each other, but everywhere else you look, you don't see one. it's a way to protect the view shed. If that doesn't work, then we have another process, which is very similar to the old process. It's actually the old process. It's the conditional use process, which goes through a lot of public hearings and a lot of other things. We feel that by creating these incentives of a communication district and actively promoting them and making it easier to co-locate, that we will be able to really minimize tower proliferation. We won't be able to end it. But if somebody has the choice of building where there's already infrastructure and saving themselves hundreds of thousands of dollars and going over on that hill, there's good incentive for that, even for big families. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. We cleaned up a lot of things, made sure it's consistent with FCC rules, and 20 years it needed a little bit, but that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. Have anything you want to add to that?
And I would say, just following up, that we did have the public hearing at the Planning Commission this last month, and we also received 0 comments in terms of any written or oral comments or questions. There was some minimal discussion, really points of clarification on the Planning Commission. There was questions about the districts. The map is a little difficult to see, but they are parcel based, and so there was a little key put in down in there to identify the fact that they are parcels. And so the Planning Commission did go ahead and recommend unanimously for the adoption of the Tower Ordinance Amendment.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll open it up for questions, comments.
Good process and good work again.
Every 20 years.
Yeah.
No, technology does change. You'll probably be reviewing things even more often now with the way technology is. So it looks like we have 10 towers, 11 towers? Okay, yeah.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I just have a couple questions, because mostly we're addressing any tower over 35 feet, between 35 and the 200 feet. That's what we're trying to address. And I really appreciate all of the efforts in the conversation and the hearings and so forth to both create more safety and not intrude in the environment in a way that we don't like to see. So I think you've done a really good job of doing that. So thank you very much for that. I just wanted to ask about, so the under 35 isn't mentioned much in here because it would just be like the building, it would just be considered like a building. So we don't have to mention it here. It's a building, not a tower. And then the lit tower piece, is it over 180 feet for required lighting, or?
It's 200 feet.
Okay, so that is addressed. It's the same number.
Right. Yeah,
200 is the lighting.
That's by FAA rules.
Right.
So
we're trying to go under 200, the lighting. That's why we don't talk about it in here.
We do talk about it by exception, and that would be, it would have to go through the conditional use process, because not only if you wanted to build a tower outside of a communication district, but you wanted to build a tower that didn't meet the other basic requirements, one of which, I'm sorry I didn't mention that, would exceed 200 feet and therefore need to be lit.
Right.
Would have to go through public hearings, and you would have to prove very clearly why you would need that.
That's great. So one more question. On the maximum height of a tower of a COW carrier on wheels, shall not exceed 120 feet. What does that reference, or what does that mean? I mean, I understand what 120 feet means, but why 120 feet? I'm just curious.
Those, I think that's kind of a typical height for those,
Okay.
but yeah, those are temporary towers, like the kind that were brought in during the last fire.
Right.
So it would just be, they would come in, and I guess you could ask for an exception to that as well, but I think that was just sort of a standard.
But 120 feet is sort of a standard for those kinds of towers, so that's why you chose 120 feet. 120 feet.
That's what I found in the literature.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Okay. No further questions or comments. I'll hear a motion to accept the unanimous recommendation of the Planning Commission to adopt the proposal of this tower ordinance as presented, and also there's no direct impact on our budget.
Motion to approve.
I hear a second.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda, we'll move to Jeff Cadwell, the administrator.
Madam Chair, this might be a good time to bring
Yes.
our Forest Service people forward.
Yes. Do come forward.
You can all sit together over there and
And then not feel like, yeah, we separate and
Yep.
conquer.
Well, good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Michael Courteau. I am the District Ranger on the Gunflint Ranger District here. Some of you I have met, some of you I have not yet, so looking forward to doing that here, hopefully in the not-too-distant future. Maybe we can discuss or determine how we can make that happen and have some dialogue between us, as well as our Tofty District Ranger, Ellen Bogartis-Shemaniak, who is started also at the same time as I did back in October. So the reason that myself, John Benson, who was our Assistant Ranger Recreation and Wilderness, and Marshall Moy is our East Zone NEPA planner. It's Environmental Review, NEPA acronyms. Are you all familiar with what NEPA is? Okay, so I don't have to say what that acronym means. So the reason that we're here today is to just share generally information in regards to our next planning area for vegetation management within Cook County and the Gunflint Ranger District. It's called our Kimball area, and essentially the area goes from on the west side of Devil Track, and it's a fairly narrow band that runs through Gunflint Trail area, just south of Elbow Lake, and includes the Elbow Lake area, and then north up to Northern Lights, follows the Brule River over to the east, where it bounds with state forest land on the other side, and then wraps around the bottom side of Trout Lake and under Devil Track. So I've got a series of maps here that I'll share with you all. We won't go into any detail at this time of what the maps mean, other than wanted to share that we are having a public information forum at the district office on June 28th from 4 to 6 p.m. We've already started to meet with various groups, the Scenic Byway Committee, and with others within the community. We're going to continue to do that through this process, and this is a little bit of a different format than we have in the past. We're trying to do more public and partner engagement more upfront, as opposed to here's our suite of units that we're going to do treatment in. We're more so in the information gathering stage with folks, members of the public and organizations up front of what would you like to see on this landscape where we're moving in. So that's going to be kind of more of the norm as we move forward in the future, is just more engagement with our partners and the public up front, and just start kind of that dialogue as opposed to just coming in at the end. So there's just a series of maps that I'll pass along. One is talks about vegetation age class, so how old are the trees within this planning area. The next one talks of hazardous fuels, whether we've got high hazard down to low hazard. The next one is a graph that, based on the units that are within that area, it shows the age class distribution of the vegetation in those various areas. And then the last one is, it's got the various shades of blue, is a mature patch canopy cover. And we'll be going over these in more detail at that public forum on the 28th. But just wanted to kind of start that this point with you all, just kind of know where we're going. As you're aware, we just finished our signed the decision document for the Shokashu area. Here in January, and we're moving forward with treatments with that area, which is a little farther to the north than this area, but includes some of the wildland urban interface work that we will be doing up around Hungry Jack, and there's going to be over the next couple of years. It's probably some of our more high priority work. Anything that I'm
Okay.
any questions?
When you say vegetation management, what does that term mean?
Sure. So it really, it depends on our forest objectives for particular areas. So say, for example, in some areas along the Gunflint Trail and the Scenic Byway, managing more for our older lived, longer lived species such as white pine, red pine, some of those objectives to look at the scenic qualities and adhere to our forest plan, which says we're going to manage for the scenic values along this area. And then in some other areas, it may mean going into a unit and clear cutting in order to get back to that younger stand, which is helpful for moose, but also to allow that economic viability for the mills. But also, it's just part of our overall forest plan objectives is to manage areas to not have a monoculture across our landscape. So in some cases, it might be thinning of red pine stands to increase the health and resiliency of those stands. It might mean going into some areas and leaving patches where you have longer lived species such as the pine and the spruce, and leaving patches in areas and not full clear cut. So it really depends on the objectives, what the public and our partners want to see, and what we're trying to move towards according to our forest plan objectives. Does that answer your question?
Right. Okay. Questions? Yes.
Just to comment, I really applaud your Forest Service and all of you for, trying to get some more dialogue where the action is taking place and, where the sites are that, for those that are impacted. And I know in education I worked a lot on that process of trying to get more input early on, and so that, but it doesn't mean that you circumvent planning or that, but it's just really good decision making. I really am happy that I see that movement because I know it works a lot better, and it definitely helps us local people be partners and not feel like we're being imposed on or dictated to. So, good work.
Yeah, and just on that end, this really is kind of a national direction of being good neighbors. And what does being a good neighbor mean? It means collaboration and having that early dialogue and saying what's important to the public and to the partners in this landscape. We want to work together to achieve that. Where in the past, perhaps it didn't work all that well, and then you have a long drawn-out process at the end where
Court.
I wish we would have had some time to talk and discuss a couple of years prior to that process. So
It's nice to see these things in my old age.
They don't just talk, they're actually going with 2 or 3 members of the Scenic Byway to actually look at trees and discuss them in depth with each person, because they're not just a single lifespan. I like to talk in dogs, and my Danes only live for 9 years and my Chihuahuas live for 18, so you can't just say,
Trees
only
live
gonna-
this many.
Yeah, so, and these 3 plus more came to the Scenic Byway Committee to talk in detail, so it's not just talk, it's a whole lot more, and it's been really nice, and you guys have always participated in the Scenic Byway Committee before Michael. So it's been very nice, and, don't always agree, but we come to an understanding and figure it out, and so it's very nice to have this happening.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Look forward to the information then on June 28th. Thank you for presenting this.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay.
I just need to go and come back.
Anybody need a break right now? 5-minute stretch?
I brought treats.
5 minute
Okay.
stretch, you got it.
5-minute break.
Now I've come up with more questions and things like that. Is it, because I realize there's things he said, I'm clear with it.
There they are, all lined up, huh?
That meeting, the more I thought about it, was really good.
Yeah. Welcome if you. Older, I think it was
homestead because mail is returned. I'll get returned because of vacation, you know, there's. I appreciate your comments on parcels had a garage on the wrong parcels. Why they were next door, but I think it was just, they owned both parcels, but
But you know you can get up and leave anytime. Oh, I know, but I didn't wanna, there's voting issues coming up, and I didn't wanna leave, yeah, vote. Right. You know. Yeah, I guess I drink too much this morning.
well, you know,
So now I can switch to coffee. Yeah, you can do that, yeah, say go faster, yeah. Yeah. And I think these things are great. They are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So wow, he got the tree and the. Oh, yeah, same day. So good luck on Saturday. Or I hope you don't have as much suffering as you're anticipating.
Life is suffering.
Oh, good, well then you're gonna.
That's what the Buddha said, life is
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah, well.
So that's why I like to run marathons, so that I don't forget.
Yeah, well, I also think there's an archetypal desire to feel that, because humans weren't always as comfortable, and there's a.
No.
It makes you feel alive, and it also, I wouldn't call that a healthy thing to do necessarily. But, you know, I don't really get the drive. More power to you.
I'm not properly prepared,
Oh, bummer. Yeah, that
but
doesn't
I'm
feel
not
good.
injured either, so hopefully I can complete
Hobble
the
through.
course without injuring myself.
Yeah. And then you're a big boy, you can quit, right?
Is this?
No, you're not that big a boy. You would, you would injure yourself versus giving up.
I should have quit a race one point,
Yeah.
and I didn't, and I turned and I ran on the outside of my foot, and I ran myself into a stress fracture.
Yeah, see?
But
But you're old enough to realize it. Yeah.
well, I would count on it.
Okay. Okay.
These got approved then, too, in the
Yeah,
consent agenda.
so-
All the temporary employees.
Okay.
You can just
So
do
these
it
are the
whatever.
vehicles and they're not.
See, what do you
mobile.
got?
This is portable and such. Yeah.
The Porsche didn't make it to this
Yeah.
photo shoot though.
I don't know, I reacted poorly.
And I would have been in the picture except for I don't have the top on my Jeep, so. This one.
I will still stand on the
I
basis
was
that
in
it's.
that vehicle. But normally Jordy and I bring our own vehicles and drive separately.
Yeah. Some rings aren't ours.
And those weren't our monkeys.
It is.
Yeah.
No, it's distorted. This is a picture. He was just trying to get everybody in.
And we do have a lot of monkeys.
So this one right
no
here,
shortage.
that was a,
You might all like to have your pictures taken
I might. This right here, this vehicle, that was a
Think of
husband and
mine.
wife with 2 kids and their dog. That went with us. No, you're just helping yourself. You know, you just. How old you are?
No, I don't like chocolate. I don't like coconut either.
You are the youngest commissioner, but you should stop that nonsense.
Yeah. Need more. Need more.
Or younger commissioner? Okay.
Although I'm not an ageist.
People make it eat walnuts.
All right.
Let's get this show on the road.
Here we are, we're all back again.
It's all right.
We're going to move then to Jeff, the administrator's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I handed out a quick report just so that I could bullet point the items that we have going on and touch base on them. We do have one thing, two things to approve. I'm sorry, the second one snuck into the middle of this and didn't make the agenda, and if you're willing to do it, we can. The first one is the Budget Committee membership. We had applicants from all 5 districts. Each of those applicants has said that they were interested in serving on the Budget Committee. They're listed here. District 1, Arvis Thompson. District 2, Mike Carlson. District 3, Jim Boyd. District 4, Nick Berger. And District 5, Liz Wagner. And they have all agreed to serve on that committee. The first scheduled meeting of that group would be next Tuesday, June 19th at 1:00 p.m. And we'll discuss the regular schedule of that meeting at that time, but at least for now, that meeting is scheduled for that date and time. And what we would like to do is have the board affirm that membership, the addition of those members to that committee.
I would like to move that we appoint these people to the committee.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Pass.
An update on our capital projects related to the bond issuance. The community center projects bids opened on June 7th. We have a bid tabulation. I have that information available. I can share it. We have not awarded the bids yet because we are hoping for some economies of scale between that project and the Hovland project, which the bid opening for that is going to be on June 21st. So I'm hoping that we will have a request to award bids at the board meeting on June 26th for both projects. We have an opportunity potentially to negotiate some of the ads that we have for these projects between the two and hopefully come up with some efficiencies in both of those projects. The last update that I have on the capital projects is that we had been waiting for the Army Corps of Engineer permit to come through for the CASA 17 project, and as of Wednesday last week, we hadn't received it, and Kristen Foster suggested that we defer and not do the bidding until next year, and then Thursday, we got our permit. So on Friday, she talked with Commissioner DeShaw and asked what his preference was, whether we hold off till next year to bid or whether we do in fact go forward with the bid this year and split the construction, the restoration this year and the paving next year. And Commissioner DeShaw asked that he thought we would still like to issue bids, and if we get a competitive bid that we go forward with it. So included in my report that you received is the letter asking for authorization to solicit bids for the CASA 17 reconstruction projects. Bid solicitation to begin June 23rd with an opening scheduled for July 18th. And then, of course, if we receive bids that are in line with the budget estimates that we have, we would assume that we would move forward with that construction. So I would ask you to consider authorizing this bid release if you would be interested in doing so.
Okay, so I will open it up for comments or questions first. And then,
I think it's pretty exciting to finally get this project going up there. It's been many decades since it needed to be done, so I'm excited. The people of Grand Portage are excited. So.
and would you want to make a motion then?
I will make a motion to approve that.
Support.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Let's hope it works out.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then the next item that I have here is a letter that I drafted in support of the Superior Cycling Association's continuing to work to expand this connector trail. It's a project that we've already supported. They've already received grant funding for it. They need a letter recognizing that we have supported them in this process. And if you're okay with this, they need this by June 21st, so I would just sign this and send the letter that, yes, Cook County has been working with the Superior Cycling Association to get this project done. Tim Kennedy did let me know that they are going after another project and another source of funds, and they will very likely be on the agenda on June 26th to identify a new project they're going to be working towards, asking the county to ask as fiscal agent. They're not asking this here. They're just simply asking us to acknowledge the fact that we've been working with them on this connector project. So really, this is a point of information unless somebody objects to my sending this letter.
Any comments, questions on this?
Seems like a great letter to me. This is the letter.
And this, they received that $180,000 grant to do the work, partial of the work on the connector trail. The routes identified, everything's there. So this is just a continuation of that same project between Lutsen and Britton Peak, I think.
And we do like to give letters of support for people to continue their grant writing. We're also a fiscal agent too.
Synergizes money coming in. Yep.
Then two other projects that are continuing projects I just wanted you to be aware of, and at some point we'll probably have some action on, but the school construction is ongoing, and at 11 o'clock this morning, I'm joining a construction meeting up there because there are some impacts because of the shared space between the school and the YMCA, and we know that we're gonna have some impacts on that. The school, in trying to meet their security standards, is negotiating with the YMCA and on some space allocation for the daycare up there. So we're working on that project specifically today, and I will let you know more when we know more. Commissioner Bershheim, I don't know if you're available to join us at 11 this morning, or if you would just.
I think I could. Yes,
And
I
if you
have to go to
can't, I will
WTIP.
update you and let you know where the
Sure.
next one is.
Yeah, no, let's see if we can make it work. It'll
Even
take
even
about how long?
even 11:30. I'm assuming the beginning of the meeting is going to be the regular construction meeting, reviewing where they're at in
Okay,
the
so
timeline.
11:30?
I'd say 11:30 would be
Okay, then
better.
I'll go to WTIP first, and then, unless Joe isn't there, then I'll just go.
Okay, very good.
I've got another meeting at 1, so I'm fine.
And then the last update is the Wold jail study. The core planning group is going to meet on June 14th. And remember, after the committee of the whole meeting we had with them, that group will answer some questions, provide some direction, and then I assume in July that we'll see a master plan to finalize this planning project for the board to take action on. And then
Madam Chair, I just have a question. Mr. Cadwell, this is a question, no implications. This Budget Advisory Committee bylaws, do we need to take action on that, or would it be adopted by the committee members themselves?
I think we'd have the committee members themselves adopt it.
Okay.
It's a fair question, because there's a part of the bylaws that references the Duluth Superior, the values of the Duluth Superior Area Foundation Speak Your Peace program. And we've got those materials throughout the county buildings, but the county has never formally adopted those rules of civility. And at some point, we'll work to bring that to the board for their consideration, to adopt those generally as the board, and then push those out into the other committees that we authorize.
I respect your, views on that, so thank you.
But I do think I think the board, the group itself would take a look at that and say, yeah, these are the rules we're gonna follow.
I think that's wise, yeah. Thank you.
And then I did get one update. Kristen Foster is out sick today, but she sent me an email looking at the agenda and made a note that the meetings to note on June 18th, 2018, we've noticed that MnDOT Commissioner Zelli is going to be visiting Grand Portage, and they're calling it the Reservation River Restoration Celebration at the river at 9 a.m. So that's the additional information we didn't have when the agenda went to print. At 9 a.m., Commissioner DeShaw, would that be at the bridge there?
It's right up above there where I think it was a joint project between Grand Portage, Soil and Water, Cook County, MnDOT. There was like 5 people at the table there, so.
So there will be a ceremony or something with Commissioners.
I think so.
And
Zelli.
Soil and Water will be there.
And Soil and Water will be there at 9 a.m. on June 18th.
Yeah. If you're gonna go, just meet at the river and.
Okay.
At quarter
Whenever
to
the
the river.
Whenever the airplane lands, he'll be there. He's flying in, so.
Yeah, they
Flying
were
into the
saying meet
river.
at 8:45. Meet at 8:45.
Okay.
Preparation, yeah.
Okay.
That is all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will move on to our employee concerns, commissioner concerns, reports, meetings.
I'm sure the add-on.
The add-on, yes, right.
So I handed that out earlier. So the two items essentially are the proposed budget calendar, starting today. This really mirrors what we've done in the last many years, including last year, with a few changes from last year. So today, just looking at the calendar, the directives to the department heads, and then distributing budget materials. The deadline for submission of department requests be July 27th. And then assemble them, get them to you. Plan right now would be the highway, law enforcement center, and general fund budget, general presentation to the county board on August 14th. Public Health Human Services to make their presentation at the Human Service Board meeting on the 21st. Deadline for towns and special taxing districts is September 15 to submit their proposed levies. And then our final meeting before proposed county levy requirement to be approved would be September 25th. So that'd be our goal, to approve a proposed county levy and budget, and then set the meeting for TNT, which could be after November 26th. So we put on here 27th, just as a holding place. And then have the truth and taxation meeting, and then finalize the levy by December 28th. And we could do it anytime between the 27th and the 28th. So. And then the letter to the department heads, which presented to the department heads at the MAT team meeting, just starts out, the county core value is to provide quality, responsive public services in a cost-effective manner. That can only happen with the commitment of department heads, balancing the needs and desires for public services with the tax burden of providing those services is the challenge we strive to meet. So, with the same process as last year, we don't meet, you won't meet necessarily with every department if we follow that schedule. For sure with the larger departments, Road and Bridge, Human Services, Sheriff, and with the other departments, if there's something unusual, some reason you want to meet with them, we can do that also. And then describing to them at the public meetings from 2018, we pledged to reduce the 2019 levy to single digits with the specific goal of trying to stay under 5%. So that'll be a challenge since we know what our cost of living increase is for unions, 2.5%. We know what's happened with health insurance in the last decade or two. Doesn't leave a lot of room for initiatives. So that's the basic message there. So.
Madam Chair, if I could add, there's a couple of considerations. In the August calendar, Allison McIntyre mentioned to me that she's continuing with some education, and August 21st is the first day that she has to be in St. Paul. So she was going to come to us next week at the Health and Human Services meeting and ask if we could switch the 21st with the 28th for the Health and Human Service and the regular board meeting. We'll discuss options, but know that there's a potential conflict on the 21st with the Health and Human Services meeting. And then another consideration Julie keeps reminding me about is August 14th will be primary elections. And the space may be occupied. That doesn't mean we haven't moved and held our meetings elsewhere. So just considerations in looking at this calendar is.
Okay, we could look
So,
at that in another few
yeah.
weeks.
So I'd ask for either other questions, other changes, or if you could approve these two by motion.
Questions, comments, changes?
I'd like to move that we accept the budget calendar with the amended change in Public Health and Human Services presentation to the 28th of August.
Just a point of clarification, Madam Chair and Commissioners, we'll be discussing that next week. They're not asking us to make that change right now. because
right,
it might not
okay.
work for everybody.
Oh, okay. I withdraw my motion.
And we'll discuss it at Public Health or the board meeting?
We'll discuss it at the Public Health Board meeting next week, and I would just suggest that we just accept Brady's calendar as it's presented now and know that we'll have to amend it.
Oh, okay.
And we
I'll
do
make
that.
the motion to approve both of Brady's requests.
Support?
All in favor? Aye. We support you, Brady. You've been busy with capital funding and all of that. Bonding, funding, everything. Time is flying to be ready for everything, so.
Yeah, just to report the $10 million is in our account at Magic Fund as we speak.
Okay. Yay. Concerns, comments, meetings to note, meetings to update. Commissioner Bershheim.
Yes, I have met with someone that I've been involved with on some other community projects, and I was informed that there's a committee that's being formed in the county as a result of funding from the Community Foundation, which Mr. Cadwell, I think, is chair of, and it's in regard to social justice. And we have our sheriff and county attorney that are on that committee. I would ask that at the next meeting that we consider a county commissioner to be appointed to that committee. And there's a meeting coming up in August, and there's training that will be involved in it in September. The reason for this, I've been involved in the community on a group of people that's been called social justice. And I've been involved in that on and off for about the last 5 years. I've had, in my work life, I was very involved in a program in the schools that I was responsible for that was based upon reality therapy, which was sort of the predecessor to this social justice. At that time, it was acknowledging difficulties or problems that people have and what you can do to make restitution or reparation at that time. And of course, now that's becoming, you know, in this restorative justice model. So I've seen it work well, and I think that our county should seriously look at this. And I would ask that at the next meeting that you appoint me as a county board member to serve in that committee. Any questions about that?
Okay. Yes. Commissioner.
I would like to see who's on the committee and the bylaws and the meeting dates and stuff before. Not that I would say no, but that is one of the reoccurring themes of public comment and questions of Heidi-do in the public is, why do we have so many meetings? So I would like to have as much information as possible when we add more committees to our list.
So if that's not available, then you're saying we shouldn't go forward?
That's not what I said. I said I need more information.
Okay, so do you know what information is available? I know nothing about what's transpired except that I know that it's forming.
It's really in its infancy. This committee is exploring, you know, like we don't have a procedures manual, we don't have bylaws yet. Inger Andrus and Barb Heidemann are leading up the effort. And so the bylaws and regular meeting dates can't come along until we decide what the program is going to look like. Obviously, that doesn't, we can't put the cart before the horse. So I know that the committee members would be interested in having some representation from the county, even in the beginning stages, in order to help design a program that best fits the needs of the population.
Would Inger and Barb be interested in presenting? I know when other committees have asked for commissioners, the chair or president of the committee has come and specifically talked to us about it and let us know what they're doing. I know it's infancy, but there's been a social justice committee, I don't know if it's the same one, that had different leaders on it that I've been to their meetings.
Sure, and this one is more restorative justice practices
Okay.
instead of social justice.
Okay.
I mean, which,
So it's a
you
different
know, there's
committee.
definitely an overlap there.
Okay.
Yeah, I will reach out to Barb and Inger and see if they could present, but.
Thank you.
You know, it would be helpful to just have Commissioner Bersheim at our August meeting, or the training, even if the board's not gonna commit to having a commissioner at every single meeting.
Okay. Madam Chair, is that okay to add them to the agenda for? Okay.
Can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, Myron.
Okay, yep, thank you for the opportunity.
You will do WTIP?
Yes.
Okay. Deputy Clerk.
There was some information presented to you this morning, and I just wanted to give you the correct information and update. Just a reminder, the EDA is the housing authority. So you've got a housing question, that's where you go. The assisted living, it's been a very long discussion with the business that was considering coming in. We as a board approved the 2 lower lots across from law enforcement possibly being used for that project through the EDA. And they have a few assisted living facilities, and they just recently completed construction on one within the last year. And when they considered coming here to Cook County and having discussions, I wasn't on the committee with them, just the updates from the EDA. It was gonna be assisted living with housing and daycare for their staff, which is kind of the model that most businesses have adopted in Cook County to cover it. And so the reasons for not coming here were not because there isn't housing or there isn't employees or it can't be done. Their reasons are business reasons that have to do with
The market?
well, not necessarily the market. I mean, when you already own businesses and you want to expand, you have to do things and take a serious look at it. And they're just at this time with current construction, not prepared to do another facility. So, you know, I don't want to put words in their mouth or say that they're going to be bankrupt or in financial trouble. That's not it at all. I mean, they just have a lot of businesses already going and things moving, and so they're being careful, which is great. I mean, you don't want a business to come into Cook County and fail. So I applaud the fact that they're not screaming down the road just trying to get it done because they want to get it done. And so I don't know that the discussions are completely over, but they did completely understand what it meant to come into Cook County and what they would have to do to be here. And the EDA, kind of feel like all we talk about is housing all the time. So I know that you are all aware that we have a housing situation, and the EDA is aware, and we had a GO team that studied this years ago. And so I was on the radio last Thursday talking about vacation rentals and long-term housing, and I said it several times on the radio, and I'll say it here again. I do not have a large amount of people beating down my doors saying, raise my taxes to build housing. And that's the big point of it. You were all here last year when the EDA came in for its levy, and it was not well received that they were increasing their levy, and that levy increase in part was for housing. And so it's not that we don't care, it's not that we don't want to do it, it's not that we don't know that there's a housing issue. But the money doesn't fall from the sky to do it.
Can I just piggyback on that?
Yep.
That the current EDA has worked really hard and has brought housing to fruition. That hasn't happened, that idea has been in the works for 40 years. It just happened. They've done something. So if we really want to work toward housing and solving the housing issue, or at least making a dent in it, let's support the EDA. They're the folks that have actually made it happen. So not just, let's be happy that we supported the EDA this past year in our budget process. And
in
let's continue to
5.5 years,
support them.
we have had people present to the EDA and have really good ideas and bring things forward. And I hate to say it, but many of them were coming to the EDA because they wanted us to give them land for free, or they needed something, or they needed funding or something. And so that's what it comes down to. And, you know, maybe the EDA isn't really good at tooting its own horn, but, you know, years ago, we had funding that came in, I believe it was through Deed, that helped out with the Mangy Moose. And then they sold, and part of that agreement was that they had to refund the money back. They had to be in business for so many years for that money, and so we got about $22,000 that came back into the EDA. And the EDA was able to loan that money under the same contract terms as we originally had with Deed, and it went to Bruce Block for his project. So
Awesome.
we are trying to do everything we can with what little we have to do it with.
So, and the statistics are that, I just heard this, I haven't researched to know that they're true, that 44 units have, or will be this year, placed in the housing market, 44 new. That's unprecedented.
Right, and the GO team, what we came back with when we did that years ago, which I don't know what the changes are, was that we needed to build 22 rental units a year, and that was 6 years ago. So I don't know if it's the same or where we're at with it. And, you know, my family and my friends and many of the people in my district start out with your house in your garage, so.
Yeah, all of us have started there.
Yeah, so.
Without plumbing, usually.
We've
Some
come a
people
long
look
ways.
forward to
Yes.
that. We've come to a long ways.
Come a
And
long
some
ways.
people are off-grid and they want to be that way. So
Right.
I just want you all to have the update and to know that, I know you're all aware. I know you all hear it, but we get it.
Okay. Very good. Anything else, concerns?
Yeah, have we got anything from Brian for the Colville Town Hall and the repairs they need to do?
I've not had a chance to confirm with Brian.
Okay.
I do know we don't have any, we didn't assign any money for it in the budget, so we're gonna have to figure out how to make that work.
No, I think we can figure out how to make it work.
Speaking of budget, did we get the list of expenses and income for that facility?
I've not seen that.
Okay.
Anything else? Before we adjourn, we have some people to recognize.
We do. We have a big one right on the top.
Yes.
David Eckel, 39 years as custodian and so much more. Kelly Berg in our auditor's office, 1 year. Rachel Espy, 4 years in the assessor's office. Lisa Wallers, 1 year in maintenance. Reed Schmidt, 1 year in public health and human services. Scott Benokin, 10 years at the highway department. Alyssa Smith, 1 year in public health and human services. Kevin Tweest, 16 years. Allison Plummer, she's got 9 in the assessor and 3 in public health and human services, so we've got 12 years for Allison. And Mr. Cadwell is 3 years with the administrator. You know, in looking at this list and the meeting we had last night for our Board of Appeals, we had nobody here for Board of Appeals, which in my time has not happened. And so when you look at this list, you need to know that the work of Allison, Cindy Crawford, Betty, Rachel, Bob, and Todd to get us completely into quintile and get us up to date and have fair taxation across the board. Valuations have got us across the, I know, I'm just so excited I get my words mixed up. You know that happens. That's a huge accomplishment. I mean, it's amazing to have that done, and the continued work that they do in that office, they need to be recognized. And then, Jeff, in 3 years, the crap that we've accomplished, sorry camera people, I'm gonna say crap, because we have gotten bonding done, we've got our road situation moving forward, we've got strategic planning, and then I don't know how you go to all these meetings and get all this stuff together for us so that we can make our decisions and do our jobs. Brady's got a ton of work thanks to Jeff, but that's all right. He can handle it all. But to put all of this together, I mean, all of these pieces that were done before all of us got here and after us coming here, and all of the staff doing all of this work that they do for us, makes it all possible. So thank you, everybody.
Right on. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Jeff, for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay, I think I need to sign
Okay, who
those
needs the
cards.
cards? Anyone?
I signed them, Bobby signed them, Ginny signed them. Jan, did you sign them?
Nope, I need them. Thank you.
Okay.
Good job.